Welcome, 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 welcome. This is Kingdom Empowerment International, and we are here today again, another Wednesday afternoon, with Pastor Tito Paul and your co host, Dr. Ian. Alongside me, Lazy V and Dr. Yvonne Bennett. We have been having some great times together. Last week, we started on a topic that was a very hot topic, dealing with bridging the gap and the generational gap between parents, children, and so on and so forth. This week, we want to talk about our children and what do we do with our children after a certain time, and what is the age to make a decision as to if they should stay or exit. Well, in a few minutes, we'll be talking about that. I want to greet everyone this afternoon. Grace and peace be multiplied to you from God our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ. Lady V, it's good to see you one more time, another Tuesday. Dr. Bennett, it's good to see you. Could you go ahead, greet the people, and then we will start with this
Blessings,
wonderful
everybody.
Greetings, everyone.
Everyone.
Oh my goodness, it's always good to be with these two anointed women of God, two generations sitting on the same platform with me, a mom and daughter, and both of them are loaded with information. And every time I sit with them, I learn so much, I receive so much. But today is another hot topic. Dr. Yvonne Bennett, the expert and years of service to the kingdom of God and to the nation of America. All these different generations that you've gone through, and you've raised children, you've been a mother, grandmother, and all of that. Now, tell us today, we want to start off just off the bat asking, at what age do you believe that we should tell the children, hey, it's time to flee the crib?
Well, first of all, blessings to you, Dr. Ian and Lady V, and to all of our listeners, and to the absence of Pastor Tito Paul. I don't think it's age so much. I think it's maturity, because a child can be 25 and not be mature enough to leave the cradle, so to speak. You have to know that child, and I don't believe that it's healthy for a parent to say it's time for you to leave, regardless of the maturity, regardless of the age, so to speak. But actions is a whole nother story. When you cannot respect my home, when you disrespect me, and of course my husband in my home,
Right.
because as long as you're in the home, you have to abide by the rules of the home. So I don't think it's age so much. I think it's maturity. When you mature to a point where you can take care of yourself and so forth and so on, I think people voluntarily leave. But now when you reach a certain age, like you have finished high school, you're getting ready to go to college, and now you want to keep these late nights, and you want to not keep your space clean, and you're disrespectful and all of that, then it's time for us to sit down and have a family chat about whether or not you still fit in this environment. Because we should never allow our children to distort our environment just because they're our children. Because if we do that, then we're allowing them to control us. Yes. And that is not the way life should be. So there does come a time when we do have to sit down at the red table and say, I noticed some things, and I don't want you to be uncomfortable, but I don't want to be uncomfortable. So we have to come to some type of a mature conclusion, because this environment no longer seems to suit you. It no longer seems to suit your fancy, so to speak. You don't seem to be happy here, or you seem to take a lot of things for granted, and I don't want to cause you to be miserable, and I don't want to be miserable. So therefore, there comes a time when we do have to have a round table, a red table discussion. Yes.
Wow. Lady V, now, what would you say, or what would you call maturity?
Ooh, well, I want to say having an understanding of how to take care of yourself. And I think that comes with years of preparation, training. So I'm going to add to something Dr. Bennett said, and everything she said is absolutely true. You can't be in the house and be disagreeable. But when you talk about maturity, I think that it's a two-part, because it's parents' responsibility to prepare their children to leave out the nest as well. I look at when I was growing up, my mom taught me how to cook. My mom showed me how to pay bills. My mom showed me how to, we got allowance, so we would know how to manage our money. So rightfully so, probably at the age of, I would say 18, 19 years old, I knew how to manage a house. I may not have known everything I needed to know, but I knew how to survive on my own. So I think that it is not just the children ready to, parents don't think, well, you're 17 now, you got to get out. You have to also prepare your children.
Nice.
Get out of the house, and that comes with stages. You're not going to, you can't just start teaching them at 17, 18 years old. If you haven't taught your teenager how to clean up after themselves, and this is for real, because a lot of parents are like, well, they don't want to clean. They don't want to, well, that came in the adolescent stage. I was washing dishes at what? 8, 9 years old. My mom started me. She started me with drying. Then she started me. I think at 5, you made your bed. Now, did you do it to your mother's standard? No, but you started learning how to pick up your toys, how to make, and everything was a stage. So then by the time you're 18, now you got some things going, and now you start putting a little bit more responsibility. You give them a bill to pay. You give them something. But everything is training. So am I going to say it's an automatic, you're 18, you're mature enough?
Right.
No, but I am going to say that it is a parent's responsibility to get their children prepared to transition out of the house. Now, if you have not transitioned by the time you're 30, I'm pushing 30.
We have problems.
We have
some problems. We have a problem.
Because now we should be having conversations, and we should be having conversations at 20, conversations at 22, conversations at 25, conversations at 27, and you should be monitoring what they're doing. But if now they want to do what they want to do, like Dr. Bennett said, then I'm going to make that transition for you just a little bit earlier than what you had expected.
Yeah.
I am telling you. So maturity has nothing to do with age. So it has to do with the person's development, spirit, soul, and body.
Correct.
We're talking about spirit, soul, and body, a balanced life. And can you say, Dr. Bennett, that parents are responsible for a lot of the children being or staying in the stage that they are at right now, that immature stage?
Yes, absolutely. Because there are a lot of parents that, and I find this in my professional line of work, a lot of parents, especially mothers, they mother their sons too long. They do for them. They wash their clothes. They clean their rooms. They do all of this. And now it's time for this young man. He's reached an age where he wants to go on his own. He wants to get married. He hasn't learned anything because mommy did it for him.
Right.
And then that on the flip side, it goes with the daughters as well.
Mm-hmm.
Some mothers feel like the daughter can't do what they can do it like they
Right.
can do it,
Right.
so I'll just do it. No, like Lady V said, you have to train them, and it starts like Lady V said. It starts from way down here. You start picking up your toys. You
Yes.
cannot go to bed with your toys all over the floor. No, that's not
Mm-mm.
acceptable. You start them that young, and you also teach them if you drop something, you pick it up. And
Yes.
you have to teach, you have to train them and teach them from young. But a lot of parents hold their children the reins too tight, and now
Yes.
they get to be a certain age, and you want them out of the
Yes.
house. It's just like
They're
letting
not
a
leaving.
bird go with no wings. You know, you have to wing. You have to wing your children. They can't
That's
fly
right.
without wings. So
That's
you
right.
really have to train them. And the
Yeah.
Bible says that train them up in the way they should go.
Go.
And when
Mhm.
they get older, they won't depart from it.
Yes.
You
Yes.
you can never release a child and you didn't teach them anything.
Right. Right.
And not only teach them, but live it. Live it.
Live. Yeah. 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 As a parent, one of the things I've done, I grew up seeing my dad do a few things. And one of the things that my dad did was 9 of us in the house, 9 children, 5 boys, 4 girls. And mom and dad was always doing the outside work. He was the worker on the outside. Mom was the house maker. And she was the manager of the house with all of the children. And dad had something that he did because he had 5 boys, 4 girls. He had to pretty much, we were actually living like sardine. Hey. And so, lots of stuff wasn't happening, but stuff was happening because children do whatever they want to do, but there was an order. So what he did, and I would encourage parents to do this, especially when you bring your children up, give them assignments.
Yes.
From now, give them
Absolutely.
assignments. What my dad had a schedule on the wall with
Mhm.
names attached to it
Yep.
and chores Monday to Sunday
Yeah.
or Sunday to Sunday.
Mhm.
So
Exactly.
everybody had a chore to do in the house. It doesn't matter how small it was. And in doing that, he allowed all of us to develop in our own skill because we would never know the skill set of a child or our children if we keep doing everything for them
Right.
and funding their behaviors and funding their habits. And a lot of times parents are responsible for their children not growing up, like you said, Dr. Bennett, because we do everything for them. Wash
Yeah.
me. Hey, when it comes to the house, listen, every man is doing something in that house. I used to be a madman because I think I saw my father was crazy when it comes to he didn't play. But we had an order in the house. If there's no order in the house, the children will grow up thinking that's the way it is.
Yeah.
I was listening to one of my nephews, and he said something to me. He said, well, I saw aunt did that. I saw uncle did that.
Mhm.
I saw auntie did that. So it's a pattern. So we just going to hang out here until we're 30. I said, hey, no way. Not up in my place. You got to go. Because if you're not contributing, if you're not helping, and if you're not willing to even grow up to do something, then you don't need to be a part of this particular circle right now because you're more of a hindrance to me than a help.
That's right.
But I think that also, and I think that that's really cool because being a father, I think that plays a large part in the homes with sons, but where there's a mom, a lot of times moms put a large responsibility on their girls.
Mhm.
And like Dr. Bennett said,
They leave.
boys just kind of, they give them little
Free
things,
pass. Free
but
pass.
they get a free pass. And then
Mhm.
what happens is now they become grown men
Yeah.
and get in relationships.
They
and
don't
I
want to do anything.
say it like this, they're not worth 2 cents because they want their wife to do everything for them.
Right.
And
Oh
it's
my
because their
God.
mother has smothered them. So
Right.
now we got these super strong girls who, girls can go out and I'll be honest. I'm gonna be honest. I'll tell them myself. My daughter who is going to be 36, I pushed her out into the military at 17. She retires in another year and a half from a 20-year career. Now, my sons, I did a little bit different. I did. I smothered them a little bit more. I especially those two youngest ones, they're not worth 2 cents. They can't get their life together. So I take responsibility. I tell them my own self. If somebody asks me, I did it because I did make them do some things, but I put a large responsibility on her and not enough responsibility on them. And I see the difference. I see the definite difference between them and her. So I think that there is a difference when there's a father figure, and then when there is when you got to look at the children all the same. Everybody's learn, because if not, they're going to stay in your house. They're not going to because you're not making it to where they want.
Yeah. The more you make your environment comfortable for your children to continue to live there and they feel everything is fine, then they think that that's it. I ain't got to go anywhere. I'm moving until heat comes in. And you got to put heat on your children, get them doing something. And like you said, a lot of the boys have been given a free pass. And so some of them don't even know to wash clothing. They don't know to keep a clean house. They don't know to do nothing for themselves. And they at grown age and they're still putting their plate here and there, their cup there and all of that nonsense. That's because somebody did not get on them early. With me, my 18-year-old, he has a chore. Every 2 weeks, based on the look of the bathroom, he got to give that thing, it's got to be looking white and clean. The bathroom, the toilet, the mirrors, everything, because I don't play with my environment. So you got to make sure you do that, because I'm telling him, hey, you're doing this now as a preparation for when you go out to somewhere that you will not embarrass yourself. You may embarrass me a little, but you will really be embarrassing yourself. But then they're going to point to me and say, who's your father? Who's your mother? You didn't get no training from nobody. So those are the things we have to put in them now. Pick up after you drop. You don't have a servant in here. I'm not your servant. Your mother's not your servant.
Right.
And then there is that little conflict to Lady V, where you have the soft and the hard parent. That is difficult. When the dad is trying to do something or the mom is trying to do something and the other one is giving them a pass. No, don't get no. Listen, when your children start coming to the kitchen, give them a chore, even if it's to pick the knife up and bring it to you.
That's
my grands, what I do, they love to get me to go in the kitchen and bake cake for them. Yes, I do. Bake, cook, everything. So every time they're doing the cake, they come and say, Grandfather, can we stir this? I let them do it. They're 5 and they're 11. I let them do it. You know why? Because they want to learn to do what they see me doing.
That's right.
So that when they get to a certain age. But then you have parents who will tell, out the kitchen, Mo, go, sit. How would they learn if you don't give them something to do?
That's right. That's right.
Then you wonder why they're still hanging on you. Go ahead.
Right. And also, and that's good, Dr. Ian. When children, you talked from the beginning about what age should we get them out of the nest, put them out of the nest. Well, if you have adult children, I heard Lady V mention if you're 30 years old and you're still at home. Well, after a certain point, and it depends on what that child is into. If that child is going to college and, you know, they're trying to pursue their college education. But if a child is at home and working full time and they purchase their own car and they have their own associates, their own friends, you are going to be given some financial responsibility in this home. That's how you teach them and train them, because now you want to be treated as an adult. And I would say that to a child. Now, because children will say, look, I don't know why I have to come in like I did when I was a kid. I'm an adult now. My response would be great response. I love that. Let's sit at that red table and let's talk about being an adult.
Mm-hmm.
There's a difference between being a grown up and an adult.
Hey,
You can be an adult and not be grown up. So now
Talk to us.
you're so grown up, we want to talk about your financial responsibility in this home. You're working full time. You're doing whatever you want to do with your money. So I have to tell you that there's some rent that you have to pay.
Mm-hmm.
Because electric bills have to be paid and mortgage has to be paid and so forth and so on. And I want to teach you that this stuff is not free. So we are going to set an amount for you to have to give out of your pay to budget every single month. And I'll tell you, you won't have to put some of them out of the nest. Some of them will go because they will think that you're putting too much pressure on them. And when they get out there, they'll find out,
Hey.
what do I have to do to come back?
Nothing. You ain't coming back.
I think the thing is when you, again, and I can say for me, I don't know about other generations, and I think someone said, let's talk our children grown and having their own family. Whether for me, whether you have your own family or not, I kind of look at it. I never wanted to live with my children for the rest of my life. You know, I figure, you know, this was my vision. You know, I've been looking at you for a long time, and eventually I want you to go because I want to be able to be free to be on my own and you be on your own. Now, I want to prepare you for that, and I want you to follow that as closely as possible. Now, when you have your own family, on the other hand, you need to go out and you need to tend to your own family. That's where, to me, all bets are off. You got a child, you got a husband, you got a wife, you got to go find your own way, because that means now all the grown people are living in the house. You done brought some other people in. I'm really letting you live here now. You done brought some other folks in with some kids. No, you need to go find your own place, live on your own, everybody in your own space, and let me be in mine. I might be a little bit more tolerating to have you stay, but you can't bring more people in because I'm trying to get people out. And,
right. You're increasing the family.
Now you've transitioned into adulthood.
Yeah.
Right.
Now you have to live like one.
Exactly.
Like one.
Exactly. But I think that, you know, a lot of times parents feel guilty.
Yes.
And again,
yes,
now
let's talk about that guilt trip.
Let's talk about those children that are difficult, or those children that don't want to grow up, and what that looks like. Because when you have children that they don't want to grow up and they don't want to follow rules, I say when they leave out of your home, you have to make it very hard for them to move back in.
Right.
You can't, once you out, you out. You know, you can't find, I'm going to tell you, this true story. I moved out. And when I moved out, I got one bedroom. So you can't move back in because there's nowhere for you to sleep. You can't move back in.
Let's talk about the guilt trip, right? That the parents go on and the children actually try to put you on that guilt trip. And here's one of the questions one of the statements they make. You're the one who brought me here. And you're responsible for me because you're my parent. Yes, I am, up to a point. Let's deal with the guilt trip. How would you advise, Lady Dr. Bennett, how would you advise a parent that is going through guilt trip right now?
Well, parents have a tendency to go through guilt trips because usually they've missed some steps. They've let things go on for too long, and that's what brings on the guilt trip. For like Lady V said, with having a child, having your child in the home is one thing, but now you're going to bring someone else in the home, and now you've made someone else together that you want to bring home. That's too many adults in my house.
Right.
So, but what you tolerate, you can't change. And you tolerate that for a period of time, and then it starts getting on your nerves, and now you want to, just push everybody out.
My
That's
goodness.
where the guilt trip comes. And
Mm-mm-mm.
children sometimes can put you on that guilt trip, especially if something happens.
Yes.
Say, for instance, they go out, they get on their own, they end up getting put out of their place, and they have to be homeless for a minute. Then it looks like it's my fault, but it's not my fault. That's why it's so important for parents to understand that, like we've said from the beginning, teach them from a young age. Train them. You have to train a child. Children don't come here knowing. So you have to train your child. You want to make it easier for your child than it was for you.
Right.
That's what it all boils down to. And once you know in your knowing that you've done that, the guilt trip is not going to come my way.
Well, I want to address something that David said. He says you are a talk and let the goal of parenthood is to get rid of your children. Where does the theology come from? I hear none of you are speaking about the fact that the global economy has been affected to the degree where sometimes it is not possible or practical for people to move out of their home. And I agree. The economy has definitely been hit. And to a large degree, we don't want to, during this time, we don't want to put our children out before they're ready. I think that what we're saying is, in order for there is a formula to you staying in the home, whether the economy is good or bad. If you are not going to do what it is that you're supposed to do in the home, then you are making your own choice to not live in the home.
Right.
It has nothing to do with the economy, because I want you to stay, but you have to want to stay. So you can't be in my home and do what you want to do. There has to be rules.
Yeah.
An adult,
boundaries.
There's boundaries, and you have to follow that. So if you understand the economy being bad, you'll understand that homeless is not good. So that means that you'll do what you're supposed to do in order to stay in the house and be able to live comfortably, rather than to be on the street and be homeless. So I'm going to say that absolutely there's that love and compassion, but there's still those boundaries that have to be set. We've been in a pandemic for a year. If you have people who have had young people, they didn't want to wear masks. They wanted to go to the club. They wanted to do what they wanted to do, and they were risking their parents' life. What do? You're either going to follow the rules of the COVID. You're either going to practice social distancing. You're going to follow the rules, or you're not going to be able to be here, because now you're jeopardizing my house. And I have a right to say that as a parent, that you can't do what you want to do in my home. So I think that, we're all compassionate in saying that we're willing to let our children stay to the level that they are ready to leave, but there's still boundaries that they cannot cross in order to stay in the house.
Yeah, especially during the pandemic, young adults, a lot of young adults, some of them still want to have an influx of people coming in. You can't do that in my home. You cannot, because we have to maintain safety. You have to maintain safety.
Exactly.
I'm required to maintain safety in my home. So now here we have a young adult, and because of the economy, they've lost their job. You can be looking for work. If you lost your job, you can be looking for work. You can't go out. You can look on the internet.
Yes.
They do everything else on the internet.
Yes.
So, look on the internet. So it may not be the job like the one you lost.
Right.
But like I had a client today tell me that he didn't believe in, he's not working. He hasn't worked in 4 months. And he said he don't believe in collecting unemployment. I said, okay, then. He don't believe
somebody throwing him wrong.
Yes.
And it's not wrong. It's not wrong, Dr. Bennett, in getting unemployment, because you work for that.
You work
pretty much. The unemployment is really a reimbursement of what you put out.
That's right.
And I heard you said something earlier. Whatever you allow will multiply. And if you allow certain behaviors, certain things to happen, it multiplies. It becomes a monster. It's more difficult to handle it. And someone is talking about love and the gospel and theology and all of that. It's not that we are not lovable or loving. Okay? God chastens those whom he loves. That's how God gets over his point, because he has to put you through a test. He has to make sure that he's training you, because he don't want you to go out there and ruin his name or his reputation. The same way with a parent. A parent does what they do so that the child will go out and properly represent them and represent the name that they carry. Now, if you are one of those parents that just didn't care because you got dragged up, and so you did the same thing with your children, then that's another story altogether. But if a child comes and says, listen, Dad, listen, I just got hit. I'm in a bad shape. Could you put me up for 2, 3, 4 months? Let me catch myself. So. Yeah, we sit down like Dr. Bennett said, we do the red table or the wrong table conversation. It's okay, this happens. All of us, when we were young coming up, before we became parents, we had to go through.
Yeah.
So we know something. That's why we're talking to you. We just didn't come up like that. We had a process that we had to go through as well. We had times when we got hit and things were really brown and green and red and all kinds of colors. We were at the flat end, sometimes at the high end, sometimes at the low end. So we went through certain things. And now we have gained some experience. We're trying to put that experience in you.
Yeah.
So that when you leave, you can say, you know what? In spite of how Dad was rough, he taught me a few things. I can stand on my own. Or Mom was this, at least I can stand on my own because she showed me certain things. Some children go out there, they don't want to learn nothing. Right. Even there's some children who are just, they follow every other thing but the instructions of their parents.
Yeah.
They just defy you. They say, I'm not doing this because of whatever influence they have. Now, those kinds of children, you have to think 3 times before you let them back in, because what they did the first 2 times was not good for you nor them. And for you to bring them back in without proper order, they will come and ruin everything that you have. You build something and they come and break it down, because now they become the center of attention. So we don't mind putting them out, but we also don't mind taking them back in if the circumstance is like a pandemic situation. But I learned today that the younger people are being affected faster now than the older ones because of the different strain and all the different things that is happening out there. So we have also to protect ourselves as parents, bringing the children back in from wherever they come.
Yes.
We got to make sure that we screen them too, because every man and everybody is a suspect. Everyone is a suspect right now, old and young. Go ahead.
It goes to respect. We talked about bridging the gap last week, and it goes to respect. I remember last year, when the pandemic came out, and I had said to my son who was living with me, he was a bartender, and I said, well, I'm asking that you don't go anywhere, because he had gotten laid off from his job, and the whole thing was, oh, it's nothing, it's a hoax, you're overreacting. Well, I may be overreacting. I've never been in a pandemic before. But if this is what I'm asking and this is my home, then this is what I expect you to do. And I think that's where the respect comes in. When you talk about young people, because we're not talking about children, we're talking about grown people, we're talking about adult people, okay? And there is a difference when adult people are living in your home. You also want to teach adult people to respect so the other adult people in the home.
In the house, yes.
That comes with maturity. When you have learned that when your parent says something, because when you're an adult, I shouldn't have to ask you to wash your dishes. When you're an adult, I shouldn't have to ask you to clean your room. When you're an adult, I shouldn't have to ask you to clean the bathroom. You're an adult. So your area in which you stay in, you should be responsible
for that
yourself, because that is what adult people do. Now, a lot of times parents, they still go back to what Dr. Bennett said. We mother our children. I'm do it. Oh, I'll do it. No, I don't want to do it. I want you to
Mhm.
do it. I want you
Right.
to be responsible and clean up after your own self. I don't want to make your bed. I don't want to wash your clothes. I don't want to do anything after you. And that will cause them then to start wanting to leave your house because they now are seeing themselves as grown people and they're realizing that
Right.
you're going to cause them to grow up
Yeah.
and they'll start thinking like an adult and wanting
Right.
to move and be
Right.
out of the
Right.
house.
That's right.
Mm,
That's
mm,
right.
mm, mm,
You
mm.
can't allow children to think that you're going just because you're in my home. I'm not your maid.
Right.
I'm not your butler.
Right.
You know,
Hello.
there is a responsibility and there is a respect, like Lady V said, absolute respect. But once again, the way you start is the way you finish. And then you
Yeah.
Exactly.
start having conversations with your children when they're old enough for you to have conversations with them. You don't wait until they're 15, 16, and 17 because they're rooted in their own personal
Yeah.
way
Yeah.
of doing things. You have to
They
sit
start
down
forming opinions. Yes.
and you're 11 and 12, and we're going to start talking to you about responsibility.
Hygiene
And
and
it's,
everything.
yeah, and it's not just your space. You're living in this home. So
Right.
if you see that something needs to be cleaned, I expect for you to go just like I would and clean it. That's all, because you have to use it. But there are a lot of young people today that have the misconception that I live in my parents' home. It's their home and I don't have to do anything. Wrong answer.
Yeah.
Good.
No, it seems as though the bird kingdom, the eco life, the bird kingdom, and the animal kingdom, they have a better handle
Yes,
on when
yes, yes.
I see,
That is
I
so
see,
true.
I see Mother Eagle did something, man, and I was like, no way. Mother Eagle, she realized that little eaglet, Eagle Google, was ready to go.
Wow,
She
yeah.
picked that girl up and threw her out. And I'm saying, and then when she see the struggle come, she came and she did whatever she had to do, but she had to fly. You
Yeah.
can't stay in the crib or your wings will be weak. That's why a lot of children, when they go out after being cuddled and mothered and fathered, and you thinking that if you let them go, then you're going to feel bad. Listen, let them go. The only way they learn is by experience.
That's right.
And the only way you know whether or not they're ready is sometimes you got to let them go. Now, you may
Yeah.
have to do some coaching. You may
Yes.
have to do some training when
From
they get.
afar.
I mean, there was many years that I had questions. Even now, you're going to ask your parents questions, but you won't know whether they're ready if you don't let them go. Like,
Right.
you got this 40-year-old person still sitting in your house because you don't think they're
Oh,
ready.
Lordy.
When you gonna let it go? You gotta let
I
it go.
kn-
You gotta.
I know of some of those. I know of some of those, and the mothers will say to you, "That's my baby." I
Yeah,
said, "What? I
yeah.
understand, man. Get that boy out of the house."
He like grown.
Yeah, I mean, and eating cereal like a 7-year-old. You got to
Playing
go.
video games.
Playing video games, sitting on the couch because they allow whatever you allow multiplies.
Mhm.
It
Exactly.
becomes a monster inside of that. Now, switching gears a little, I know this might not be a part of the throwing out, but let's talk about allowances. I know a lot of people don't like the term.
Allowances.
Do you think your children should have allowances while they are in your house? Because I heard a lot of people talk about we need to give them allowances.
Mhm.
I
When
got
they're
a theory on
grown,
allowances. I got a few theories on that, but I'll
when
listen to
they're
you.
grown, or when they're children, young, under 18.
Yeah, but before they go out and stuff like that, and they're
Yes.
demanding allowance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they should have an allowance because it'll teach them how to budget. And
Right.
when you give them an allowance, you have to give it to them with an understanding. This allowance is for you to budget.
Uh-huh.
It is not for you to borrow. You do not come back and borrow in advance for what you're going to get the next week. You have to budget it. So, and then, you teach them whatever it is, you tithe off of this and you make
Right.
sure you tithe
Right.
and you make sure that you do what you need to do.
Uh-huh.
You know, you buy your little things, and if you want something, you have to let it accumulate.
Yes. Yes.
So
Yes.
I think an allowance is good at a certain age, and I know my husband made that sacrifice for our children, all three of them.
Mm.
They got an allowance every single week, maybe Yvonne, or every other week.
It was every week.
Every week. And he would budget. What he would do, he would budget the money from his pocket, and he
Mhm.
would give our children an allowance. So our children know what it is to have an allowance.
Now, is the allowance a reward system or just an allowance?
I
It's
think
an
that-
allowance now. It's an allowance, but it's because you're doing what you need to be doing.
Okay, come
Now,
on.
I'm
now.
not going to give a child an
That,
allowance.
that was just a crazy question. I wanted
No,
to hear
I'm
that.
not going to give you an
Yeah.
allowance, and you're defiant, and you just refuse to listen. At a certain age, I can't put you out, no, because
Mhm.
I'm
Right.
going to be confronted with the law.
Right.
So I'm not going to ever reward bad behavior.
Okay.
And so
Okay.
that's why I say I'll give a child an allowance with an explanation. The reason
Yes.
you're getting this is
It's because you did that.
right.
Well, I think that allowance prepares them for when they start working. You know,
Yeah.
so
Mhm.
if you are not doing your job,
Hey,
you're not going
hello.
to get paid. If
You
you
getting paid.
come to work late and you don't punch in, you don't get paid. So it's the same concept. If you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, then you're not going to get an allowance.
Right.
Now,
Right.
I was a firm believer that once you turned a certain age,
Mm-hmm.
then I would encourage you to go and get a little job.
Right.
But even getting a little job, you needed to be responsible. You
Right.
know, you needed to be responsible. So
Mhm.
all of my children started working at 16. You know, they went out, they started working, they had their little money, they had to pay like a small portion of their cell phone bill or something like that,
Mhm.
just to
Mhm.
show them responsibility.
Yes.
But I think that again, allowance is a part of the transition until you becoming an adult. You know, you get allowance and you get a little job. So once you get that job, if you were required to do the right thing with the allowance, then
Right.
you know, now you'll have that concept when you get a job. Then when you get a job, the whole purpose of getting a job is learning how to take care of yourself. You know, parents charge their adult children very minimum to live in the house with them. You
Yeah.
know, so when you charge your children, if they're not saving and they're blowing their money, and you're only
Mhm.
charging them $100, $200 to live with you, you're setting them up for failure because they're not going to go anywhere and live for $200.
That's
So
right.
you
That's
have to,
right.
as they get older, you have to increase what they pay. Because
That's it.
as long as you're living with me, you got to pay a little bit more. You got to pay a little bit more because by the time they get ready to move out, if they can handle paying you rent, then guess
There
what?
will
They
be.
go out
Yeah.
there on their own.
Yeah.
But if you're
Yeah.
only charging them, I only charge them $50. I only charge them $75. Well, where are they going to live for $75?
And
Hey.
they come home with $300 sneakers.
Right. I mean, that's not realistic to me. You know, they never going to leave out the nest because
Never.
they get to buy everything they want to buy.
Yeah.
They get to do whatever
I'm
they
living
want
by my
to do.
mom.
And I'm living with my mom. But when you hit their pocket and you let them know, hey, okay,
Yeah.
I'm gonna start off with about 3, and then I'm gonna move up to about 6. The older you get, the more you pay.
Come
Then
on
they're
now.
eventually, if they're paying $800 to live with you, guess what? They're gonna move out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think the most important thing for parents to do is to train them up and teach them, prepare them so they can willfully leave the nest.
Yes.
But if they don't have
Proper transition.
yeah,
Yes.
it has to be a proper transition, and it starts once again when they're young. But we have to keep doing it, keep talking,
Yes.
keep teaching, keep living,
Yes.
because you do want them, like Lady V said. You know, you want after a certain age, with parents, I think we all want our freedom. We want
Yeah.
our freedom. We want our freedom in the home. We want to be able to do some things that we've never done before in our home. So
Mhm.
I think it's good to prepare children, not push them out, but
Right.
teach them and train them to voluntarily go.
Yeah,
My
definitely.
goodness.
Definitely.
My goodness. My goodness. So, Lady V, you said you put your daughter to work at 17 in the
Mhm.
military.
I did.
Talk to us about how that worked for the first 2 years or the first year when you actually did that.
Well, the thing was with me, once I identified, and I can help some moms with this, you
Yes.
know, at one point there she was very rebellious. And because she was very rebellious and I saw her going down the wrong road, I made a decision that was going to be right for her and I, because she was a
Mhm.
girl. I didn't want to put her out at 17 because then
Right.
I would have been considered not so cool of a parent.
Right.
So she wasn't college material, because she didn't do well in high school. So
Mm.
realistically, you don't put a child who gets D's and F's in high school, you don't put them in college because they're not ready for college. So
Mhm.
you start looking at other options. You start looking at
Yeah.
Job Corps. You start
Yeah.
looking at the military. So I looked at the military as being the answer, because then that was an all-in-one situation. She could go,
Mhm.
she can
Mhm.
learn some discipline. She could go and learn to live on her own. She
Mhm.
could
Mhm.
go and she would be in a somewhat safe organization. And then she can also have the opportunity to go to college once she was ready. So
Mhm.
I looked at the military as it set her up for success. So once I identified that, I'm not left with too many options with her. So
Mhm.
I let her know. Now, did she want to go in? She didn't. But it really wasn't a choice. It was you're not doing what you're supposed to do,
Right.
and I'm not going to tolerate it. And I really don't want to put you out. And you have to have that conversation with your children. You have to let them know, I don't really want to put you out. I will put you out, but I
Yes.
don't want to.
Right.
But after graduation, there has to be an immediate plan. There
Mhm.
has to be a
Mhm.
plan in action. So the plan was, she passed the ASVAB, thank God, and she went to the military. Now, today, as an adult, I think she was on the show a couple of weeks ago with her husband. It paid off. Here she is
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
She's going to retire in a year and a half. She has a wonderful husband, home, and has turned out to be a wonderful person. But it was because I wasn't afraid as a parent to
Oh,
make
yeah.
that
Yeah.
decision. I
Yeah.
feel like you have to look at your choices and you have to see, what's the best choice for my
Yeah.
child. When you have even a boy, a son, and I
Yeah.
think, with one of my children, same thing. He just wasn't making good choices. You have to start looking at programs. You have to
Yeah.
start looking,
Mhm. Mhm.
is there somewhere that I can allow my child to go where he can
Fit
finish
in.
and be
Mhm. Mhm.
successful
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
getting out of
Mhm.
high
Mhm.
school?
Mhm.
There are a lot of programs out
Oh
there. I
my
think a
goodness.
lot of parents feel like their hands are tied. I just can't put my child out.
No.
No, you don't have to just put your child out, but you can make a plan for their life.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And you do have to make sometimes parents just have to step in, and that's why we find so many um veterans on the street,
Mhm.
because parents never stepped in to help those veterans. And so they're just homeless. A lot of veterans are homeless. But when you are a parent that really cares about the welfare of your child, and you see that they can't make a decision, you have to make that decision
Yeah.
for them.
Mhm.
Because that
Mhm.
happened to my son. He went into the military, and unfortunately, he was hurt in the war and came back with a lot of mental things, and
Yeah.
we had to walk him through and so forth and so on. But I had to make decisions. My husband and I had to make decisions for him. You are going to go into an institution.
Yes.
That's what you're going to do. So
Yes.
they can monitor your meds and so forth. He wouldn't have never done it on his own. Never.
Right.
And now
Right.
here he is going to be 39 years old. He's married. He has a lovely wife, a lovely child. But you have to sometimes make a decision for your child. When you see they can't, that's when you step in.
My goodness. Lady V, when you made that decision for your daughter, getting her into the area that you believe that she fit, did you at any time, and we're out there because we're trying to help people, did you at any time feel this little thing going on in your head and in your heart, like, I did the wrong thing here? Or were you just adamant? Because I think you answered the question by saying what happened. But at the same time, I just want to see what happened to you after you said that.
I was okay because I felt that as a parent, I did everything that I needed to do to prepare her for success. I felt like, did she know everything? No. But did she know? And I'll tell you this. When she went through basic training, her drill sergeant said to her, man, you are tough. How do I break you? And she said, you don't. You can't. She said, because I grew up with the best drill sergeant in the world. So the thing is, I knew what I had put in her as a parent. Was everything all completed? Probably not. Could there have been some more things I could have put in her? Yes. But at that time, to save her life, to save her from going down the wrong road, I felt that when she walked out that door and got in the recruiter's car, I felt like I was at peace, because I felt that as her mom, I did what I needed to do to prepare her for success.
And parents must understand as well that we don't have all the answers. We don't have all the answers for our children. That's why putting them in the different places or helping them to make transitions, it will help someone else to help you to help them.
Yeah.
If you understand what I mean. And Dr. Bennett, when your daughter left the crib, what was your feeling, and how can you help a parent now listening to us and saying, or just confused about the whole thing?
Well, when my daughter left, and she got married, and I felt that she was ready and she was responsible, but the person that she married, I felt, was not responsible, and in fact irresponsible. Okay. So my gut feeling was, I wish she would stay at home. I wish she would give it more time, but it was out of my hands.
Right.
It was, I had to do like the mother eagle. I had to let her go and find out on her own. But it broke my heart when she left, because I felt that she could handle it, because I knew what I had poured into her. But the person that she was with, and that's where parents do suffer from the heartbreak, because we know what we put in our child. In our child, and saw them grow up and learn some things and become responsible. But when they marry someone that's irresponsible, you look at it from a different perspective, and you want to know, you start thinking to yourself, wow, I wish she would stay home. I just wish she would stay home.
Yes. A lot of parents also, they don't know that the little that they're putting in their child or children is working. The child might not manifest it in front of you, but you can hear it along the way that someone said, listen, man, your child is such a blessing. And you're like, to whom? Blessing? I mean, this child give me hell at home. How are you saying that she's a blessing? Because that thing that we put in them, and I heard Lady V said that when the drill sergeant was trying to break her, the drill sergeant said, what's wrong with you? She said, well, I had the best drill sergeant in the world. So whatever you put in her, that particular thing worked for the environment. And she was able to work through that whole thing because of that little thing that you put inside of her. And sometimes we as parents, definitely we have to realize that letting them go is not the end of the world.
Mm-mm.
That's the beginning of their world
Yeah.
and ending of something that you need to let go of,
Yeah.
because you can't hold on to them forever. After you have parented them and you have given them all the things that they need, the next stage for you is being a coach.
Yeah. That's right.
You know, you're going to still be mom and dad forever, but you need to start operate as a coach from then. What do you think about it?
And that's
Oh,
true. And that's
yeah. What do you think of? Let them
Yeah.
make the decisions and let them ask you for your opinion.
Yeah.
Then in your opinion, you can drop a little teaching here and there.
Mm-hmm. Because if they want to go, you sit down at that red round table and you ask them, okay, so your plan. You never ever move out of your parents' home without a plan. So what's
Right.
your plan? Go over the plan.
Right.
Let's see if you have the things together. If you're going to take in a roommate, you need to know something about this roommate. You need to know
Right.
that if the cost of the apartment or the living quarters, the dwelling is going to be split in half, you need to know the stability of that person that you're going to live with.
Right.
So just like you learn responsibility at home, you're going to be expecting that person to have some responsibility.
My goodness. Lady V.
I think that also we need to be honest with, it's something that Dr. Bennett said. She knew that I was ready, but she also didn't believe that the young man that I married wasn't ready. But his mom knew he wasn't ready. And I
Mhm.
think that it's important as parents that we need to be honest when it comes to our children, and when they're moving out and they're moving whether by themselves or with roommates or a wife or whatever, we need to be honest with them. You're not ready. That way they will understand that there's a strong possibility you're going to go out there and this is going to fail. You know,
Mm,
I've
mm.
mothered you, I've smothered you, you don't know how to do too many things. You know, I'm an honest parent. You know, I really am. Anybody that is going to marry any of my 3 sons, I would tell them, don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to tell you, oh, you getting a responsible young man. He is no, don't do it. Is he a cool person? Yes. Can he be responsible one day? Yes. But if that's what you're looking for right now, if you're looking for husband material, if you're looking for a great father, if you're looking for somebody that's going to be a great provider, he ain't the one. And a lot of times parents, moms, I'm going to say moms will not be honest when it comes to their sons. They'll share with their daughters, but with their sons, they will not save that young woman from a whole
lot of
trouble, knowing that they getting ready to marry one of the most irresponsible people that they can marry. So I'll tell you, anybody to get with my 3, don't do it. Don't do it. They're not responsible. They're not ready.
You can be a good person and not be
right. They're not ready.
Yeah. And I think a lot of times the people get caught up in the outward appearance.
Yeah.
But until they actually live with the individual, then they realize that they've just.
Right.
Pastor Paul said we need to let our kids go.
We need to let them go, but we need to be honest with them and letting them go. You know, sometimes we're not honest. We make them think that they can go out there and they can sing. You know, I'm gonna let you know if you're gonna sing. I remember when my youngest son left out the first time, I called my mom and I said, he's not ready. And I remember when he called us and he told us, he said, well, I'm getting ready to get kicked out of my apartment. And I knew it was going to happen because he wasn't ready. I didn't prepare him to be ready. So I told him before he left, he wasn't ready. Yeah. Do I want him to go? I did, but
he thought he was. He thought he was, but he wasn't. Pastor Paul, it's good to see you coming in. What he said? Be gone.
He said, be gone.
Once we prepare them for the real
you
world,
gotta prepare them.
The key word, operative word.
Everybody
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. Well,
Years
we
ahead.
are not out of conversation. We are not out of information. We're not out of revelation. We're just out of time.
Yeah.
And Dr. Bennett, your last 30 seconds.
My final words to our listeners would be: prepare your children to leave the nest so that you won't have to go through the guilt and the shame if they don't make it.
Mm,
Yeah.
Lady V.
I would say the same thing. Train them, prepare them, equip them, and kind of put some little test in between. You know, sometimes you can test the water to see if they're ready. Give them a little test to make sure that they're ready to get out.
Right.
Wow. Well, you've been tuned into the Kingdom Empowerment International with Pastor Tito Paul and your co-host, Dr. Ian Graves, along with Lady V and Dr. Yvonne Bennett, the professional. And we are out for now, but next week we're back. Same time, same place, 5 p.m. We have another hot topic coming up. Get ready.
Okay. Get ready.
Okay. Get ready.